Trump being president from 2016 to 2020 was very bad for women in many different
Why
ways.
do you say that? In what way?
First of all, he appointed 3 Supreme Court justices that are extremely red and overturned Roe v. Wade. That's like already just one of the biggest like privacy rights for women that got taken away from them because of Trump's presidency.
Hello, namaste. Zarna Garg here with the Zarna Garg Family Podcast. So excited to have you all today with us. We are missing one Garg. The baby Garg has a football game, but the rest of us are here and we're going to get into a very spicy topic. Brace yourselves. Let's start with welcoming the family. My husband of 25 years, Wall Street veteran Shalab Garg. My daughter, who's finishing up college is a senior at Stanford, Zoya Garg. My son, who just started college, is a not junior, freshman at Cornell, Bridge Garg. So it's going to be 4 Gargs in the house today, and we are going to review the election results. We are going to talk about what happened. Are we surprised? What did we expect? What are we expecting going forward? What are our friends saying? What is our experience? I want to hear it all. I want to hear what my kids are thinking and feeling about the future. I want to hear, I actually, my husband can feel free to not share an opinion. That's fine. But let's
What?
get right in.
What is that supposed to mean?
I'm joking, Shalab. I'm joking.
It did not sound like a joke. It sounded like you were slighting me.
Okay, my audience is very smart and they know what to take from where, so they can decide how that was.
Can we just take 1 minute to acknowledge Veer a little bit more? Because I know he
Yes.
will be very disappointed that he was not part of this. He would have had strong opinions as well.
Yes.
Just because he's almost 13 does not mean that he wouldn't have opinions on this topic. In fact, he would have had quite a few opinions on the topic. And, I just want
But
to say
I
that
am
he
here
will
to
get that.
accurately represent his opinions because I know his opinions.
We
Yes.
reject that.
Yes.
We do reject that.
Anyway, so the election is over. The big 2024 election is over. Who is surprised with the outcome?
I'm a little surprised, not with the fact that Trump won, but I'm a little bit surprised at the voter turnout for Kamala's party and her basis. I did think that she was going to get a better turnout that would have helped her a lot. I think that everyone expected it to be a really close election, and it just really obviously did not end up being close. He won pretty much every swing state except for one. He won the entire blue wall. Like, I don't know. I just think that her voter turnout wasn't as what she was expecting, what she needed.
So that surprised you. How about Zoya, Shalab? How about you?
To me, like, this election validates the 2016 results in the sense that it's very clear what the country wants, and it's literally, there's no doubt about it. In every possible way, in every state, you can call it anti-incumbency, you can call it whatever you want, but it is a very right-leaning political mood in the country at the moment. And, I think that the rest of the country needs to acknowledge it. He's the president of all of us, not just his supporters, at this point. And as a result, the most patriotic thing we can all do is acknowledge that that is the direction of the country, and maybe something really good is about to happen in an optimistic way. Something that, in terms of growth, something in terms of, he's a strong leader, and I'm actually very excited to welcome him as our president. Even though, as my family members know, that as much as I voted for him the first time, I did not vote for him the second time. I voted for him in 16 and not in 24. Even so, I'm very happy to welcome him as, and follow him and his lead into the coming 4 years.
Okay. And Zoya?
My feelings on the matter are exhaustion. I called Dad, and the first thing I said was, this election result is a reminder that men can mess up 1,001 times. They can be a convicted felon, they can be a rapist, and they can still win the highest political position of power in the world. And irrespective of policy and plans, I'm not even talking about character of person. I'm just speaking on a pure woman who hopes to do amazing things in their life one day. Like, it as a woman, you can't mess up like that. You don't get that luxury. And as a man, you can. This is proof that you can make all these mistakes and your career trajectory can still just go up. But I don't feel like that same luxury is afforded to women. And that's just the truth of the universe. I'm not one of those people who's going to complain. You have to operate with what constraints you're given and be very honest with yourself, with what the world knows and believes. But it's just more evidence of that. And it made me feel exhausted by the weight of it. The reason why women are overthinkers is because we have to be. Like, that is literally, there is no other way out.
Okay, I
So,
understand that, and we're gonna get into that. Right now, it's just the first reactions, and I understand what you're saying, that there is a big surprise in that. But I will tell you, as a person who travels the whole country, every day I'm on the road, I was not surprised at all, neither by his victory nor by the scale of his victory. Everywhere I went, including massive blue states, I was seeing signs of dissent from what was happening. I was seeing signs that people, I was seeing both things, because I do work within the Hollywood system and I talk to a lot of Hollywood insiders all the time on projects that I'm on. And they just, like, they would say things like, people are getting sidetracked by side issues like the cost of eggs, because to them that's a side issue. To them it's all about abortion rights and all these other rights. Then you go into, like, you get on stage and talk to real people who paid $29 to buy a ticket to come and see me, and they're telling you that they had to decide between going out for breakfast tomorrow or coming to see me, because that's a decision that they had to make. And you're looking at them in the eye and you realize the gravity of the money that they spent to come and see you. And it's like, it is not a side issue. So I'm not surprised at all, and I'm really excited to get into this whole topic. Zoya, you broached the topic of how the women feel. I want to know from Bridge and Shalab if you want to share, but if not, that's fine. uh, uh, Bridge and Shalab, what the men are thinking. What is the mood among the men right now? Are they elated? Are they scared? Are they, I mean, this is a big victory for the bros. This is a big victory for the big bro podcasting networks. This is a big victory for what are they calling it? The strong man. So how are the men feeling about this?
I mean, by the way, just before Bridge and I go into an answer to that question, I want to point out to our viewers that your mother bet 3:1 odds while the election counting was going on. When I say 3:1 odds, I mean 1:3. So, in other words, she was willing to lose $3 to make $1 in betting for Trump and his win. And this is much before Pennsylvania went his way. And so she's not wrong in when she says that she had her pulse on the people's mood, whether it was through her travels or her work or otherwise. But she certainly had her pulse on the mood of the nation.
Or her general brilliance. You can feel free to add that.
I mean, I don't think we should overextend that comment beyond what I just said.
Well,
What I said, I
considering
already
that the
said.
whole family lost except Veer and me, who had our finger exactly on the pulse, it might be a
Yes,
moment to, like,
that is
just,
true.
because
I did not bet.
Veer bet with me. Zoya and Bridge
Yes,
bet the
and
other way. And
bet against you, but I did not bet.
by the way, this is not a statement on who we voted for or didn't vote for. It was just a statement of what we were seeing as a mood of where this election was headed on election day. So Veer and I bet
Yeah.
that Trump would win and win big, and then Zoya and Bridge bet that Kamala Harris would win and win big. So now
Yeah.
let's get into what are the men thinking, and how are they
I
feeling.
mean, for men, obviously, the victory for someone like me who has essentially been a provider all his life and trained to be one, it's a great victory, right? Like the political correctness in the nation that had gone to an extreme, and overall level of men just didn't feel like they could say anything without being chastised for it. Whether they can it has over the last many years become pretty extreme against men, if you will. I don't know, Bridge, you feel that way as well as a young adult, but I certainly think that became the case, and it was the case in our own family where it felt that Bridge and Veer had to be disciplined and kept in check from expressing their normal opinions and desires. And I think that Trump victory does help elevate some of that maybe the men should be allowed to be free to be who they are. And if it is not natural for men to be just be sort of speaking in the same way as women tend to speak, overthinker or whatever as Zoya earlier said, then that's acceptable too. They are half the population of the world.
What
I
do you
mean,
say,
okay,
Bridge?
from my perspective, I'm on a college campus, so I get to see like a bunch of different guys and talk a lot about politics with different people. A lot of the guys I see voted for Trump or really supported Trump, and a lot of the women I saw on campus really voted for Kamala. And there was a large divide within that. It wasn't like some women were voting for Trump, some men were voting for Kamala. There was a large divide in the fact that many, many men that I see were voting for Trump, and pretty much every girl I saw was voting for Kamala, to the point and where people would say, even guys would say, if you're a girl, I don't know how you could possibly vote for Trump. Like there was like a lot of that rhetoric going around, so which made it just seem, there should never be a rhetoric about someone. If you have to say that about someone, then that does say something about that person. And I personally think that I agree with Dad that like I think there is a big like I think it is easier to have more freedom of expression now that Trump is president. But I also think that a lot of the guys that I see that are voting for Trump are taking this in a really bad way, and it just empowers their hatred towards like sexism and racism in a way that I've just never seen before. And the way that a lot of them just think that women shouldn't work and that men should provide, and that is how family lifestyles should be. And I think that Trump winning did empower them a lot. And that's not even me making a statement. That's just me of what I've seen from men who vote for Trump and what their ideology is. I'm not
But
making any
this is
statements.
not
That's just what I've seen.
this
You're
is not the
already seeing
first.
signs of it. I mean, he just got it. Like the election happened 2 days ago, so you're already seeing signs of it.
Well, I saw it before. I mean, the guys who voted for Trump, they would tell me why and what their reasoning was and what they value, and a lot of it just came down to that. And when it came to women, a lot of them thought that, I mean, I disagree with this, but a lot of them thought that like Trump winning would kind of destroy all their rights as a woman. They would kind of have no longer be free in America or have any sort of opportunities. And I do think it's different, and I think it is definitely harder for them now that Trump's won over Kamala, which would have been a good female representation of women. But I do think that a lot of men that were voting for Trump that I saw voted for him for bad reasons, and it just empowers
Bridge,
them.
I got it. Can I just say something? That
Yeah.
this is not the first Trump presidency. We have had Trump for 4 years, as you know, from 2016 to
Yeah.
2020. And it's
Yeah.
not like life played out this way. I mean, this is the 47th president in
Well,
in
to
the
be
history
fair,
of
that
our
was a
great country.
extremely bad. Trump being president from 2016 to 2020 was very bad for women in many different
Why
ways.
do you say that? In what way?
First of all, he appointed 3 Supreme Court justices that are extremely red and overturned Roe v. Wade. That's like already just one of the biggest like privacy rights for women that got taken away from them because of Trump's presidency. Right? If he wasn't president, he wouldn't have appointed those 3 justices that got them to overturn Roe v. Wade. Then, in addition, we don't have to get into it, but there's a lot of gun rights things that were changed because of the justices that he appointed. I'm big on the fact that I think that the Supreme Court justices that presidents appoint are the biggest part of their legacy and one of the most important decisions a president can make. And I think that what Trump did, even though I knew he had to because he's a Republican Party candidate and he has to choose a Republican candidate, it gets really dangerous when you appoint such extremist rights or extremist lefts even. But this case happened to be rights, and now the Supreme Court is red, the House of Representatives is red, and the Senate is red, and the president is red.
But I will say, and Bridge, this is the perspective of somebody who, like, I agree with you in everything you just said. I'm just leveling it a little to be fair, but the Democratic Party also was not strategic in the way that they handled Supreme Court justices. For example, Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have stepped down. She was old enough to have
No,
known.
I know.
So
And she was
I'm
told
just
to
saying,
step down. She
and she
decided
was
not
told
to.
she decided not
Yeah.
to. And I'm just saying that,
No, I agree.
it was a misstep on both parties. And I think this is something that I've been thinking a lot about as well, is just strategy, right? The Republican Party played stronger strategy in this election. I saw this tweet from Lulu, and I want to credit her because it was such a well organized tweet that was saying, for example, ask this question to the podcast: if you could label what Kamala Harris's central theme campaign slogan was, do you know what it is?
No.
Yeah.
Joy.
No, I don't. It was.
And
I mean-
if I asked you to do the same for Trump, would you know what those central campaign slogans are?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
What are they?
Make
Strong
America
economy,
great again.
strong growth.
Yeah,
Make
or
America great.
there was another one that was like, Kamala broke it, Trump will fix it, right? So I will say that just from strategy point of view, the Democratic Party has played some cards in an incorrect way that has just accumulated and snowballed into the effect of now Trump is president, right? The fact that none of us can say what is the key thing that Kamala Harris was running her campaign on, just from marketing perspective, how can that be the case that none of us can name it? And I think that goes to show a lot of what Mom was saying in terms of sentiment around the country. I think if you don't have a clear message that is so crystal on who am I and what am I running for, that isn't, it can't be fancy words. For example, I tried to Google what was Kamala Harris's central campaign. The best thing I could find is democracy is dying. That's not strong enough. And it's not.
I guess
It's
she
not.
had that other one. We are not going backwards, or let's go
We're not going
forward, or
back.
something
Oh
like that.
yeah, no, it's
But
we're not
but
going
the
back.
but the problem with that was, first of all, she alienated all the men, because that one specifically refers to women. So right away the men were like, all right, this is not for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But having said that, on a more positive note, Zarna, like we've had 40, after this, we will have had 47 presidents in the great history of our nation, in the history of our great nation, I should say. And it's not like the nation is great because of one, or not as great because of one president or the other president. These 4 years will pass by, and the rule of law and the, structural strengths of the nation will survive and continue to prosper. And
I
there is
fully
nothing
agree.
in this country that cannot be overwritten. And if the policy does not have a long term support of the people, you talk about abortion, but just remember about that one policy that it has been contentious not just for the last 4 years, but over the
Yeah.
last 40 years.
Yeah.
From the
No,
1970s, the
yeah,
reason there hasn't been a clean policy on that and it keeps seesawing from one sort of forum to another forum and back is because the country has just not been able to agree at the core of it as to what to do about it from a permanent basis. And I'm not just talking about men. If you poll amongst women, while it's true that more women favor choice over abortion, but it's not like 90-10, as you know, Zoya, right? It's in fact a lot closer than that, the vote even amongst women. So I'm just saying the reason that this issue, or many, if there is an issue like that one has not been able to resolve for over 40 years, is because as a society they haven't been able to resolve it. It's sort of like slavery, right? It survived 60, 70, 80 years before it was resolved, right? Because the country wasn't ready for it. It's not like Lyndon Johnson one fine day outlawed slavery, or
Sharaf,
Kennedy, or
did you
any.
sit and do research before we started this podcast? How do you know Lyndon Johnson?
I'm a history fan.
You're a
I like
history
that.
fan.
Ultimately, it was a country that was ready to abolish it, right?
Also
And business
speaking,
that was ready.
also speaking specifically to Bridges' concern about the Supreme Court, I will say the one thing we did learn in law school is that Supreme Court justices get appointed for their views. Their records are studied before they get appointed, right? But
yeah.
they are notorious that once they get their lifetime appointment, they do whatever they want anyway.
Yeah,
That's
because they have
historically a
nothing to
fact.
lose.
Because they once they've been given a secure position, they're no longer afraid of pleasing anybody. So I'm not saying he is probably gonna. I mean, there's talk right now that Kamala Harris might get appointed to the Supreme Court before he takes office, because Justice Sotomayor. I mean, I don't think it's gonna happen, but there is talk right
I don't
now
think
that the
it'll happen.
Democrats might pull off some last minute strategy move. Which, I honestly, can I just say something that might be a hot take? I just don't feel like the Democrats are organized enough to pull anything off right now.
But
They
that's what I'm
just
saying.
they
But
just
that's what
feel
I'm saying.
scattered all over the place. Somebody is believing in this, somebody is believing in this. I feel like if roles were reversed, the Republicans would galvanize and seize on whatever little things they could,
But
just so they could
that's
stop the bleed.
I completely agree with that. Not to interrupt you, like, at all, but that's what I was saying. As a member of the Democratic Party, as somebody who does identify as somebody who leans more Democratic than Republican, I would say I'm a moderate, but I do lean more Democrat. I feel frustrated that the strategy is just not unified. Like, Kamala Harris also started her campaigning, like, very late
Late.
into the
I mean,
process.
Right.
it definitely feels, honestly, that she was set up to fail. I don't think.
Yeah, it's how she was. The cards have been stacked and stacked against her favor. Who, for example, and this is something that at a larger level, I admit that I don't know the full intricacies of this, but the sentiment that I was given was that she did not show up to podcasts because she just didn't want to answer questions. Whether or not that is true, that is the sentiment I was received through
Yeah.
marketing videos, through rhetoric about the situation. Who allowed that to happen? Right? Like, who is allowing this messaging to be so unclear? Whereas with Trump, it's like you're seeing him at every event in every city wearing garbage truck vests, like seeing Elon Musk, the most powerful, richest man in the world, sitting in Michigan for 48 hours to make sure the job gets done. Where is the messaging? I feel like the messaging was
But
just
Zoya,
not
can I tell you,
centralized.
none of the ultimately there's always been two Americas, right? This is not a new development. One America that owns assets, which is your Elon Musk and people who don't really have salaries. They own assets, and through dividends of those assets and through the appreciation of those assets, they become rich. And then
Yeah.
the second America that lives on salary, that they are working, live in suburb, family of 4 or 5. They don't own stocks. Housing is their biggest asset on their balance sheet. They care about their mortgage. They care about the roads that they travel to work. They care about the education of their kids, right? This second class of America definitely has had it very tough over the
Yeah.
last 4 years. It's undeniable
Yeah.
because it's not like incomes have risen anywhere close to the pace of things. Cost of goods has risen, right? So the first part of America that owns assets, obviously assets rose at a ferocious pace, and they didn't care. They don't and will not care because they're recession proof. But the second class of America definitely has it tough. So mother, when she said that wherever she's gone, she's found people worried about bills and income. She's not wrong. And that part of America, I feel like Democrats are completely out of touch with, as if
They are out
Well,
of touch with it.
I agree with that. Even like, for example, everybody keeps talking about the male Latino vote, right? And I spoke to somebody who works in our house, and he didn't know how to drop off his ballot. And this was the first time he was allowed to vote because he had just gotten his citizenship. And so I walked with him to deliver his ballot, and I was like, hey, like, I would love to know what you were thinking when you were making your decision. And he immigrated 20 years ago and has gone through the entire process and is now an American citizen. And he said two things. One, I hate how my money is being spent. I feel that my tax dollars are being spent to help people outside of this country when I feel like I'm drowning. I feel exhausted. I don't know what to do. I feel like there are so many issues here that need to be solved, and all my money is going to solve other people's issues. That was the first thing he brought up. The second thing he brought up was I came here fairly and I went through every ring that was required of me, no matter how demeaning, no matter how exhausting. I went through it all, and I don't feel it's fair for other people to not go through those same processes. So it was interesting, right? Like, that's a perspective I've never been given, and I had to really actively seek out.
Oh
So
my
I
God,
agree
how
with
do you not have that perspective? You have two immigrant parents. Shalab, what
No,
are we
no.
doing with our own kids?
And also you've lived most of your life in Manhattan, where I'm sure you've seen all these illegal immigrants everywhere just crowding.
Are we like chopped liver or something? Do you not see us
Wait,
saying the
can
same
we just
thing?
no. Let's take one step back. It's not that. It was more so the perspective of somebody who I would have expected to have voted in a different way. I would have expected him to have voted, I would have expected him to vote the other way.
Did he even mention those comments from the Madison Square Garden? You know, the comedian who said derogatory things about
There
Latinos.
were a lot of issues with that rally at MSG and what
But
Trump
do you know
supporters said when he came on stage before him.
Right, that was not. But
There were a
it
lot.
didn't
The
matter.
comedian said that Puerto Rico was a flying island of trash, but the Latino vote still went to Trump, so that didn't
But
matter at all.
that's what I'm saying, Bridge. What I'm saying is I would have
Yeah.
expected, given all the rhetoric, given all the tropes that he brings into the party, and those weren't even top of mind at all. I didn't direct the conversation. I let him say his piece. He gave me his piece. He told me it was the first time he had voted, and I am so appreciative of that perspective, and I think like it goes to show that I am in a bubble and I didn't really know what was going on.
Anyway, so we are where we are, and people have voted for him in large numbers. What are we hoping for the future? He is surrounded. The thing that differentiates 2016 from 2024 is that he is surrounded with some very smart, accomplished people this time around. It feels like people who have
Yeah.
legitimately done big things in their lives for the country, have succeeded in different ways. Are we feeling optimistic this time around that this is going to be a different administration altogether, or are we feeling like don't get fooled into it, it's going to be more of the same?
I
I'm
think it'll be
afraid.
good. I'm afraid though. I'm extremely afraid.
I'm afraid.
I think it's
Also, you guys.
extremely. You can
Yeah,
go.
sorry. No, you can go. You go.
I think it's extremely dangerous the fact of how much of the government right now is leaning right. It should never be that one party controls this much of the government. That should never happen. Where he controls the Congress, he controls the Supreme Court, and he's in the executive office. If the whole government is leaning one way, then like what's stopping them from like pushing every single policy that they want to go through? Right? They're gonna push for
But
almost
Bridge, it
every
also
single
makes
thing, but that
decision
doesn't reflect
making
the public.
easier. But why not? I
It
mean,
makes
the
decision
majority
making
did vote
easier,
for
but if
him.
you're making decisions that aren't reflective of the general population, then that doesn't mean anything. You're just making easy
Yeah.
decisions for bad policies,
But
right?
but
You
but
don't
Bridge,
want.
and I don't want to play devil's advocate, but as a follow up question, Trump's agenda has been crystal clear. We all agree on that. He has not been one to mince words
That's
with
true.
respect to what
That's
he
true.
wants to achieve. So if based on that crystal clear agenda, majority, including the popular vote this time, not just the electoral one, he has been elected, then shouldn't it be the case that it's good that he has the support of the Congress to be able
I
to
No.
execute that agenda?
No, because it's not like 100% of the nation voted for him. Even
Yeah.
though he won the popular vote, the vote ended up being within like 3 million. Like it was a very very tight popular vote win. It's not like 75% of the country voted Trump, right? There's still that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a very big proponent of. I do not like the electoral college and the way it represents our states and the fact that
Yeah.
it's a win takes all electoral college, meaning that if the popular vote of one state, if 51,000 people, if 51% of people in New York vote blue, then the blue candidate gets every single electoral vote. That doesn't make sense to me. It's not representative of their state. It's not representative of the people. Yeah.
And Bridge, to add, it's historically important for democracy, for better policy to be created. You need lots of perspectives. America thrives on lots of perspectives. And right now, it's very much one perspective is owning the entire decision making process. And that is cause for concern.
But
There's
but
cause for
as your
concern.
dad rightly pointed out, there is also opportunity. Checks and balances are great, and it is a way to balance the power. But what it also does is create gridlock. So when there is a good idea, it like has to jump through so many hoops that it doesn't get done. It is also one reason why nothing in DC ever gets accomplished, because they've come up with a good idea, and by the time you get through the process, everything about either the goodness of the idea is gone because they had to remove this, they had to remove this, they had to remove that, or the idea dies somewhere along the way. So I choose to take a more optimistic stance. He is in power. He is going to be all our president. He is surrounded by people who are very accomplished. And honestly, they don't really, I don't know what motive they have to screw over America. These people are already so rich. I really want to believe that they want to do the right thing for this country. I want to believe
No,
that.
you one thing that I'm afraid that this is now Trump's second term. He has the opportunity to exercise every right, every powerful decision that he is offered as president. He is now going to play because he at this point has nothing to lose, right? He actually has no restraint on him anymore, and he has the full powerhouse of all the House, the Senate, and I am afraid that he is going to optimize for his own brand. He's a businessman. That's a reason why people love him, and I am afraid that he's going to use this power that he's been granted in a really malicious way. And I'm not saying that from like, I am optimistic that that is not the case, but I disagree with you that he's so rich. Why would he even do that?
No,
He is so
I'm
rich,
thinking
but the
out
rich
loud.
want to
I
get
agree.
richer.
No, I agree
Yeah.
with you. I'm taking a more optimistic view. Of course, no one knows what's going to happen and how it's going to play out and all of that. And now we're going to have an Indian second lady. Do you guys have any thoughts on that, Usha?
Yeah,
I mean,
which is
she's
great.
extremely well educated. She's
She's really
so
smart.
well read, well
By the way, did you
educated.
guys know that we have the oldest president, but we also have the youngest vice president? So,
Is
in other
that
words,
true?
if,
Yeah.
yeah, so in case, I hope and pray that nothing happens to our president, but let's say if something was to happen to our president, then we will have the youngest president of the United States automatically.
Wow. Oh, I didn't even realize. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's right, because his kids are very young. I remember like seeing
He's
photos
very,
of.
very young. Vance,
Yeah.
it's just a very polarized situation where one person is that old and one person is that
How
young.
do we feel about the India US relationship under Trump?
Well, in all of our extended family WhatsApps, and I would love for people who are also have family from outside of this country share in the comments what they think and what they've been seeing. Everyone is ecstatic. My
Yeah.
friend who's Chinese, her extended family and relatives were praying that Trump was elected, praying. And so
Mm.
I actually have not seen a single person internationally comment in on the situation and say that this was a loss.
Yeah,
No.
because everybody likes
Yeah, I
taxes to
know
be
a lot
lower.
of people
Nobody in the
think that this
world.
is bad. I know a lot of people
Abroad?
outside of the world that think
Internationally,
this is
who
internationally.
okay.
I think I know I guess your Chinese example is one thing, but I know a lot of Chinese people on my campus that are really upset over Trump because Trump does plan. He's made it very clear that he wants to put a lot of tariffs, heavy tariffs on China specifically, and imported goods from China. And I know a lot of people who are a little concerned about how like China will deal with that, and they know that as much as the China is just as much of a superpower as America. There's always going to be some sort of like we're not allies with them. We're not like we're not looking out to make sure China's good, and they're definitely not looking out to make sure America's good. But at the same time, we have such a symbiotic relationship where we're so in desperate need of each other's existence because we get so much product from them and they get so much money from selling all their product to us. So it's such an interesting situation. So when Trump plans on putting
So,
so
so
many
Bridge,
taxes on imported
just to
goods,
think about
yeah,
what you just said, that they sell us so many products and they get so much money from us for those products.
yeah,
Do you know at the same time, American companies are not allowed to sell product into China?
yeah. I mean,
It's not like American Cadillac company or Ford Motor Company can go and start selling cars into China. I mean, how is that fair?
I mean,
well,
okay, so the
there's a
the point
large
is that
population difference. There's a lot like we need them to sell the product. We don't have enough people in our own country that can support our own country. If we cut off every other country, we couldn't survive. They have over a billion people there. Like they still need other countries, but not to the same level of where America needs other countries. Like we need imported goods. Like we just do. Which is why when there's so many, and this is the interesting thing about tariffs is first of all, if you don't know what a tariff is, basically that's a tax saying if you are going to sell this product in America, you better pay a lot of fucking money to do so, a lot of effing money to do so. That's basically what a tariff is, right? So when that happens, and when you force China to pay tariffs, China is now saying they are not going to pay those tariffs. And if they're not paying those tariffs, then the value of product in America skyrockets. And if the value of product in America becomes much more important, it will become more expensive, right? That's what the issue with tariffs is if the countries aren't willing to pay the tariffs because they're too high, then you get into trouble, which is why those types of like international policies are really heavily debated right now. That's just like I just thought
okay,
it was
look, we're
important.
not going to get into the policy, and I hear what you're saying, Bridge. The bottom line is that you know people who are afraid. Zoya knows people who are elated. In my
Yeah.
experience, my WhatsApps are all filled with celebration from abroad. People are, of course, there's also the Europeans who should just shut up as far as I'm concerned because they have
Yeah,
their.
I completely
The
agree.
Europeans
I mean,
don't
what
do
are they
anything
even
except
doing?
sit in
I
judgment.
know.
All they do
I
is sit in
completely
judgment.
agree.
They don't make a single
They have
freaking
neither anything
decision.
to gain nor
Nor,
anything to
I
lose.
mean, the Swiss, sorry, just stay out of it, people. You've decided to be neutral at the worst of times. We don't want to hear your opinions one way or another. Enjoy your chocolate,
Yeah.
enjoy your cheese, and stay out of it. But
And I will add that when I was in London, I was in the heart of the technology sector of London for 3 months. People were not working Mondays and Fridays. That is what I saw. I know that finance aspect of London is very, very bustling. They're working hard. But I will just say from a first-hand perspective, Americans are putting out work at a level that I did not feel like people in London were doing.
no,
So
no,
I
you
would
know
love
what
to know what
people in
people think
London
about
are
it.
doing? You know what they're doing? They're praying they get into America.
Well, no,
They
No.
they have a work-life balance situation where they actually understand that life is about more than work, which I do think that America is not attuned to. So that was the energy that I saw. It
Yeah, well,
wasn't
they
that, but
do stand around outside their pubs, and I don't know what they do. Anyway, the bottom line is he is the president now. We're all gonna get behind him with some sort of cautious optimism. Let's say cautious optimism, a little anxiety because of how things ended the last time, but also a little hope that things will be better this time. And I'm excited to hear all that you guys said. I want to hear what all our listeners and viewers have to say, how they're feeling about this moment in time, reflecting now that the election is over. And as we end every episode with a riveting round of good grades with Gargs, where each one of us assigns an A grade to each one of the other Gargs, let's start that round now. Who wants to go first?
I'm gonna go first.
Okay.
I really am so excited to give Bridge the A grade in this episode. I feel so grateful as a young girl in this country that I have a brother that can understand things at a macro level without buying into the personality of the candidate. I do think that a lot of men are taking this as an opportunity to set a new precedent of what men and machismo in the US is going to look like, and Bridge is so allergic to that, and it makes me feel really safe.
Yes, I agree with that. Good
Wow.
job.
I'm going to give mine to Bridge as well, not for this reason that Zoya gave it to him for, but his description of tariffs and understanding of economic policy, I thought was very well thought out. And I didn't even know you paid attention to those things because most people, when they think of term, they just think of no illegal immigration, no, they think of more human rights issues and lose sight of the economic policies, but clearly you don't, which is great.
Good job, Bridge. Bridge, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm gonna give my A grade to Didi because I think that for a long time she's been very different politically on her stances than the rest of the family, and she has been like very intelligently making her own independent opinions, which I think is really important because I think most people we all know the best indicator of someone's political beliefs are their parents. Like that's a fact. So I think that it's really important that if you're able to make your own independent opinions on politics, that is something that everyone should strive to do and not just listen to their parents and whatever they think.
Bridge, do you want to get cancelled out of this podcast? Is that like you have a death wish right now? And by the way, her
Mm.
opinions are not that independent. They're extremely California. Like we all know where her opinions are being generated in the farmers markets in Palo Alto, walking around with a freaking overpriced celery stick. Don't even act like for a minute like we don't know where it came from, okay? Just because her dad and I are liberal enough to allow
Hey,
you
that's not
guys.
even fair. That's not even fair because Bay Area tech has never been more Trump focused. Tech is very, and I am in the heart of tech, so I actually disagree with you there. Everybody I know
Okay, the
voted for.
point is that your dad and I have been liberal enough to allow you guys to have your own opinions, but there are limits to every freedom. And since I get to cast the final vote on who's going to get the A grade, I give my A grade to Shalab for the very astute and optimistic observation, which quite frankly shocked me because not he's not traditionally a font of optimism, but in this moment he was, when he said we have to remember that the country will survive. It has survived all these years. Even the issue of Roe v. Wade is not like a 4 or 8 year issue. People have been fighting about it for 50 years. So we are going to overcome. If things go out of hand, there will be another correction. Let's hope it doesn't. Let's hope in optimism and in success, this ends up being a big victory for Americans. This ends up being a big victory for the world. It ends up, maybe he creates a better immigration system so people who want to get in can get in. And there is actually a way to get in as opposed to all these really difficult, treacherous things that people have to do. So I believe in optimism. And we now want to know from all our listeners and viewers what you think, what you believe will happen. Make some predictions in the comment section. As you know, we read everything. And we are so grateful that you tuned in with us. We hope you talk to your kids about what they're thinking. We hope you talk to your parents, grandparents, neighbors. The one thing, can we all agree before we go? Can we all agree that the one thing that needs to happen is that we should be able to talk about our beliefs? No one should be
Yes.
reprimanded for what they believe, whether you're extreme left, right, middle, center, whatever it is. It should not be
I
that just
agree, but that
because.
is a large debate in America when it comes to Trump. I know a lot of Democrats that make an argument. There's actually a big thing in my school about like morality and when it comes to specifically Trump and how what Trump believes in can become less of a political stance and more of a moral stance and how that can influence someone's opinions and why that should be able to be taken into consideration when you're friends with them. Now, I disagree. And I personally believe that no matter what someone's political opinion is, unless it's extreme, because I'm very against extremists, and I think extremists are just that's like the reason why our country will never be unionized is because people always have extreme policies that just do not make sense. But I do think that I personally believe that you should never persecute someone based off their political beliefs, and you should always work to just talk about something like that. But there is a large argument when it comes to that.
I agree,
So
but
it's
I'm
not just an
saying that.
obvious take. It's not like we should all agree. It's something that is talked about.
No, but we should be able to talk about what we believe, Rich. Do you disagree with that? Like, I think it's
I do believe
become
you should be able
taboo.
to.
No, but
I think the
he's
issue is
saying,
it becomes so emotional when people start talking about
Yes.
this type of stuff. And I'm saying that I'm not sure. I can't make my own decision whether it's correct that people get emotional over it or not. Like, do people deserve the ability to get emotional when it comes to this specific presidential campaign and debate, or is it just you should be able to talk about this unemotionally? What do you
Okay,
think?
as you can see, this topic is endless. We could go on for another 5 hours.
yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We want to hear everything that you're thinking. Put it in comments, DM us, get on our social media channels. We want to hear. We're trying to create a positive space for this topic. And from all the guards, bye.
Bye.
Bye.